product life cycle. A product is manufactured, it makes no money, nobody really buys it. And then the product begins to get market acceptance, so it grows. And after a while, people love it so much that it reaches its maturity. And then people stop liking it, and then it declines. And sometime in the future, the product will die. Product life cycle. Human beings are no different. You have birth, infanthood, growth, maturity, teenage life, adulthood. You know, there's a beautiful ayah, I think it's Surah Hadid. وَوَصَّيْنَا الْإِنسَانَ بِوَالِدَيْهِ إِحْسَانًا حَمَلَتْهُ أُمُّهُ كُرْهًا وَوَضَعَتْهُ كُرْهًا وَحَمْلُهُ وَفِصَالُهُ 30 شهرا حتى إذا بلغ أشده وبلغ 40 سنة قال رب أوزعني. This beautiful ayah that talks about birth, how the mother looked after the baby, weaned the baby for 3 years, etc. And then the baby, hatta, until ashudda, they reach maturity. What age? 40 sana. 40 years of age is maturity. In Islam, the peak of maturity at the age of 40. In English, we say life begins at 40. There's a Quranic basis for it. And then what will happen? وَمَنْ نُعَمِّرْهُ نُنَكِّسُ أيوة. So if Allah gives you old age, He reverses you in nature. And so from knowing very little, you know so much, and then you know so little. This life cycle of man. And then there will come a time when there will be death. Now, so this is the product life cycle. The problem is that when it comes to technology, product life cycles don't look like that anymore. They look like this. What does that mean? You're born, you peak, and you die quickly. Product life cycles. You do this. I bet you, those of you who are more than 30 years of age, more than 30, like my age, you will remember some products from your childhood that are not around anymore. But you use it for a long time in your childhood. And you grew up with it, and you knew it so well, and today, it's all gone. You use stuff today you never used in your teenage years, or in your 20s, or in your 30s, because product life cycles are becoming so short. So the rate of disruption and the velocity of disruption is going to be cutting product life cycles very short. We get used to something, it's gone, something better has come. Get used to it, now?
5 minutes old.
5 minutes old, it's 5 minutes old. So, Tayyib, let's go on. You see, this is a graphic of a blockchain engineer working on a floating bank somewhere in Southeast Asia using blockchain technology. Wi-Fi internet, it's in the cloud, there's access, and people who are unbanked. You see, these are all rural homes on the water. Unbanked people who don't have to go to a city to go and do banking. They use cryptocurrency and they buy and they sell and they make money and they lose money and whatever. And there's an idea of a blockchain engineer working on a remote bank floating on the Pacific Ocean. So this is a lady maybe from Saudi Arabia because she's wearing hijab. She's operating a crane that is doing large-scale 3D printing of pre-stressed concrete. We have a concrete engineer here. So do you know, as we speak, the first fully built 3D printed home has been created. A fully built 3D printed home using pre-stressed concrete. I give you an example of 3D printing that's already worked. Maybe 3D concrete is too radical to think about. One thing that really touched me when I looked at 3D printing, you know, children who are chronically ill children are very difficult to take care of because they need long-term medication, and often chronically ill children need multiple medicines. And the thing that children hate the most, mothers would know, is swallowing tablets. They hate it. It tastes terrible, it's large, it gets stuck in the throat, and all of us who are fathers here, we've played all sorts of tricks to feed our children medicines. My favorite trick was an aeroplane trick. It's a global trick. You make the tablet look like an aeroplane. In the mouth, and you try and make tricks, but children hate medicines, right? But chronically ill kids have a daily struggle with medication. So there's a company called the Sweet Factory that has manufactured the first 3D printer that manufactures gum, like a sweet. 3D prints gum, and they found a pharmaceutical company that can put a few drugs together in a cocktail into this gum. And they've got a mobile robot that goes into a pediatric ward, and the child then selects what gum color and shape they want for the day. So I press a strawberry-shaped gum, and at my bed, it prints the gum with the medicines inside. Then I eat the sweet, and I've taken my medication for the day.
And enjoyed it.
And you say, "Mommy, I took my medicines," rather than crying about taking your medicines.
Yeah.
So it's fundamentally changing the way human beings live and operate. So we printed a 3D house, the first 3D printed car, completely 3D printed has been made. Let me give you an example of Boeing. Boeing, is manufacturer of engines and aeroplanes. Just think about this for a moment. We'll take a break because Hudhaifa needs a cup of tea. So Boeing has got tens of thousands of engines in aircrafts around the world. On average, 9 million people are in the air at any one time in a day. So all the airports around the world potentially have to keep the maximum number of parts should a Boeing engine break down. So you're traveling from New York to Dubai, and God forbid you have a breakdown in Dubai. But the whole issue in the airline industry is to turn the plane around. You don't want it to stand on the ground, right? So within 90 minutes, it must be loaded again, cleaned, and back onto whatever destination. If you have a breakdown, the turnaround time is delayed. So now how do you keep millions of parts in dozens of locations around the world? It's impossible. Financially, it's not viable because too much of inventory is lying around. How do I know what breaks down in Dubai regularly? Maybe the heat creates some part to warp. Or what happens in a cold climate like in Iceland? Or if I go to India where it's so hot you think somebody is chasing you with a hairdryer. So they use statistics to decide which parts commonly break down using big data. So in India, Mumbai, regularly this rotor blade goes in a Boeing engine. If you go to Switzerland, that particular part in the wing breaks. Or the small pipes that feed fuel in the wing, it breaks down in New York, for example. And then they 3D print on site in those locations, those specific parts. There's no need to send inventory all around the world trying to guess what part is going to break in that particular location. So those airplane parts are 3D printed in those locations. Now,
what type of factory that brings this thing in real? I mean, okay, they design, as you said, they print. That's the order. That's the idea, and the order is given. I want to know what kind of, how many factories do they need to make all this kind of? You keep on saying printing, different items.
Yes.
Different items. Totally different item.
Yeah,
big size, small size, like very tiny, small. Then they need many factories or companies to make this in real. I understand the designing thing,
Yeah.
the idea, the designing, the
Yeah.
order, everything.
Yeah.
But to come in real,
yeah,
I need manufacture.
not really. Not really. Let's go back to the babies example, the conjoined twins. So they did 2 3D prints, one of material that represented skull bone. That was one type of printer that was fed with that particular material which made the skulls of the 2 babies. So one 3D printer with one particular type of material. Let's call it, yeah.
I'm talking about, okay, you say print it.
Yeah.
Print it.
Yeah.
To have it in real,
Yes.
the material comes from somewhere.
Right.
And
The machinery.
Thing,
Yeah.
building,
Yeah.
to build the item.
Yeah.
I believe we need lots of
Lala, it's one machine. It's one machine.
to print.
Yes. It's one machine.
Centralized.
It's one machine that could probably fit
So
on
you
this
insert
table.
material.
You put in material, it is programmed, and you see the printer drop the material in a particular shape until it forms a solid structure. When the printing process is over, assuming it's 2 to 3 hours, you open up the lid of the 3D printer and you pull out this, the actual item. Yeah, we'll show you some videos. We'll show you some videos. Let me tell you, brothers and sisters, this is very common. It's very common. Yes, sir.
I'm thinking of an example probably that might make it easy for them. You know, I'm sure you do bake. You know, there's always that when people squeeze the cream and so on in a certain form and shape. I believe the machine would probably work like that. It has the material and it has the kind of shape that it needs to form. So it keeps dropping those bits until it makes that kind of a form.
Better. Layer by layer.
Layer by layer. It's printed less than a millimeter thick, layer by layer, and it builds it up until you have a solid 3D printed structure.
But the same printer takes different materials.
Naam?
The same printer can take different materials. Say, you want to print a limb.
Yeah, generally speaking, I think we're at the early stages of 3D printing where people dedicate materials. Yeah, but I'm reasonably certain as we speak there probably is a material, a 3D printer that can take multiple materials. For now, I think they're dedicated. Let me tell you, it's very common technology, very common. Let's take a break because I think you're troubled by the 3D printer. I wish I had an example. I know a company in Durban, in this city, that has a 3D printer for aluminium. So it's very common technology. It's available. So we talked about 3D printing. This is a lady called Mary Lou who's designed a skull cap at the World Economic Forum in 2017. She believes that this skull cap, which will probably be in production in the next 2 to 3 years, by 2020, 2021, which will be able to X-ray the human body 1 billion times better than an MRI. And it will be available enough for people to buy, like every household would probably be able to afford it at some point in time when the technology becomes available. You can scan yourself 1 billion times better than an MRI can do. This is in the early stages of development. She's patenting the product and was presented 2 years ago at the World Economic Forum. And she believes, Mary Lou, that the skull cap will not just be able to scan your body and brain, it probably will read your mind. And because they are looking at when human beings think about different issues, there's a whole long experiment behind the development of the skull cap. When human beings think about different things, which parts of the brain and what neuroscience comes into play, and then they are trying to get machines to understand the neuroscience. So when you're happy and the serotonin chemical is released in your brain, which parts of the brain get affected? What images make you happy? What makes you sad? What makes you emotional? What makes you cry? How do you decide? Is that an animal or is that a tree? And they're looking at all of the neuroscience and the physiology of the human brain and the body, and they're trying to design a skull cap that is able to read your mind. Allah knows best how it will finish off, but it's part of disruptive technology. I want to take a moment, and we talked about Surah Kahf earlier. It's the 18th surah of the Quran. Any huffaz here? Let's go to, the 4 stories in Surah Kahf. The last one is about Dhul Qarnayn. Dhul Qarnayn traveled to various parts, and he came to a particular community that asked him for some assistance against the corruption of a people, a marauding people, Yajuj and Majuj. And if you know the verses, it's around ayah number 92, 93. ثُمَّ أَتْبَعَ سَبَبًا. He came then to a people. They said, "O Dhul Qarnayn, فَضَّلُوا." He said, "Build for us." They said to him, "Build for us." And people translate sadda as the barrier or a dam, radam, whatever. Build a barrier between us and the people, Yajuj and Majuj. What did he say? What did he say? What materials did he ask for? Atuni, bring for me Zubr al-Hadid. What is Hadid? Iron, steel. And then he said, when you then get your bellows, call and fuhu, and then he made it like fire, meaning molten, right? Aywa. Qitra. What is qitra? It's like copper, brass, copper. So he did the steel, he made it molten, he asked for brass and copper, and he built this into what today we can call quite a strong metal alloy as a barrier of steel, copper and steel. And of course, these verses conclude beautifully. And the people wanted to reward him because he did things they didn't know. It was disruptive technology for them because they don't think of it.
And for us,
So, It was disruptive for them. They hadn't imagined, they didn't have the skill set for it, right? He built for them this barrier, and they wanted to pay him. They said, no, what my Lord has given to me is better than what you pay me. And he warned them, there will come a time when my Lord's will come and it will all be gone. So here's an example from the Quran, Surah Kahf, how disruptive technology, in inverted commas, 3,000-4,000 years ago, benefited a people. So can disruptive technology benefit humanity? And can there be harms for it too? And is it indefinite? Or like for the people of Dhul Qarnayn in that community, he promised when the Lord's command will come, khalas, isn't it? So it's just interesting that even in the surah, it depends how you put a contemporary understanding to when you read the ayat, isn't it? How we can view the fourth industrial revolution. Let me give you a story, and you just listen to the story based on this picture, but imagine it with me. This is a boy, about 12, 13 years old. He gets up in the morning and he puts on his Google Glass. Now you know what it is, huh? He puts on his Google Glass, and in his Google Glass he gets an agenda. What to eat for breakfast. And what are the benefits of eating that for breakfast. And in his Google Glass, as he gets up, he's dressing up, he showers, he puts on his Google Glass, he then gets a schedule for the day for school in his Google Glass. And he realizes that today he's got a lesson on history on civil liberty leaders, Martin Luther King, Nelson Mandela, and other people. And he's meeting his teacher at a park with his class. The schedule's on his Google Glass. He has his breakfast, and through his Google Glass he's able to call an autonomous vehicle to pick him up from home. The autonomous vehicle arrives, he gets to the park. He's now having this lesson on civil liberties and the leaders. And he sees Nelson Mandela and Martin Luther King and Malcolm X, Malik al-Shabazz and whoever, and because of virtual reality in his Google Glass, he's able to interact with those leaders as if they were real, using VR in his Google Glass. Can you imagine the scenario? Tayyib? At the end of his lesson, he so loved the lecture that he used his Google Glass and his mobile phone to add a Bitcoin to the teacher's account. You know Bitcoin? Yeah. Cryptocurrency. He uses technology. He said, I really like what this teacher did. I'm adding a Bitcoin to that teacher's account using blockchain technology. He then goes back home with an autonomous vehicle, and that's the end of the day. He captures all that he learned with his Google Glass in a ledger called blockchain technology.
He didn't go to school?
He didn't go to school, no. He went to the park on that day. Maybe he went to school the next day. But on that day, he didn't go to school. Now, I want you...
But he took the lesson.
Yeah, he took the lesson, absolutely, in what a dynamic way.
Like homeschooling, but just outside.
But what a dynamic way, because it was... I want you to think, though, everything that I said in the story, which is obviously hypothetical, it's not real, which technology that I've mentioned in this 1-minute story doesn't exist today? Which one? Just give me an example of what I said in the story and tell me that's not possible at science fiction. Think through the story.
The interaction part.
Now?
The interaction part.
Which interaction?
He said he would interact with like Nelson Mandela. He said that.
Virtual reality allows it. You know, if you look at cartoons, if you look at Pixar, what Pixar is doing with Disney, intelligent machines are able to respond to voices. They can answer your question. If I open up my phone now, I don't know if I have a strong Wi-Fi connection. Siri, how do you say thank you in Arabic?
Here's what I found on the web for how do you say thank you in?
Siri, how do you say thank you in Arabic?
I can't translate into Arabic yet, but I can translate into Spanish.
How do you say thank you in Spanish?
Gracias.
The machine has responded to my voice automation. So if intelligent, this is only Siri, it's only a chatbot. Virtual reality is not able to respond, is able to present an image that responds to me. So, I mean, this is a live demonstration. So VR is able to do fantastic things. So which part of that technology that I've mentioned is not possible today?
The Bitcoin.
Everything is possible, doctor. It's all there. Bitcoin is there, cryptocurrency is there, blockchain technology is there, VR is there, Google Glass. You saw the video on Google Glass. Google Glass is there. It's all there. This is not science fiction. As we speak today, we are surrounded by all of these elements. We are surrounded by it. Now, everything is there, right? So this is not about the future, this is about the present. So there's an example of how it will be used in education. So I could go to a class like we are in today, and I speak to you like I am doing now, or I could use my Google Glass, I video the lecture, it's timed, and at the end of the lecture, I use my Google Glass to save the websites that the lecturer mentioned in the lecture. I go back with my Google Glass, I connect it to my mobile device or my iPad, and I play back those websites that I captured in my Google Glass. It's existing today. Now the notes. Yeah. Yes.
How available is Google Glass at the moment?
Well, it's in test phases. I don't think it's commercially available as yet. It may be in some parts of the US probably, but it's certainly been tested for more than 2 years now. Yeah. So this is one way in which teaching and learning, those of you who work in universities, schools, higher education, da'wah training programs, it would fundamentally change teaching and learning. Classrooms won't look like classrooms. The park will become the classroom, right? I'll show you another one on using virtual reality. So there's children using Google Glass with their mobile phones attached, and you look at the expression. There's something happening with the interaction with the technology. And Google Glass and VR, this is virtual reality, presents the screen, although it's right in front of your eye, exactly in the way your vision appears to your brain, which at a certain plane. If it's like this, you can't read it. But if the Google Glass and the VR presents the plane like this, you could be in an environment that looks very big.
I did try. It was like we went to the States. It was in Los Angeles, California. It was a big company we visited, and they gave us this virtual reality Google Glass, and it was about because they're gonna do the Olympics, and I think in 2020 it's gonna be in Los Angeles, 2028. So when we were in the company, and we wear the glass, and you can go inside, like inside the stadium. You can go inside the toilets, and you can go inside the locker rooms, and you can just see everything.
You're navigating a three-dimensional, so maybe 4-dimensional, maybe 5-dimensional space without you moving. I was at a show in this city over the last weekend. In South Africa, we have a thing called the House and Garden Show every year. I went in and there was a 3D stand with virtual reality glasses. And I saw a person put on the VR glass, and they stood on a surfboard. You know what's a surfboard? Durban is big for surfing. So the person is stationary, the surfboard is put onto a set of springs, they got the VR glasses on, and I can see the person surfing. And that person's got a real view of the ocean, the sound, soon smell will be added to virtual reality. It will be completely real.
Xbox for kids.
It's similar. Xbox is now using virtual reality glasses for gaming. So this is common technology. It's not new stuff. There's an example of science, chemistry being taught using, now the student is reaching out to an object in the 3D space, but it's not there, right? It's virtual. You see this level of collaboration between human and machine. It's stuff that we've been talking about. It's going to increase. So all of us are this is now like part of the human body, our mobile phones. You know, they say the research says that an average human being looks at the mobile phone 150 times a day. It depends how long you look at it, but there are many hours in a day we have to see the mobile phone. I see people in Salah, wallahi, I see people in Salah, and if they place the thing on the sajada, they sort of looking at it. Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim, who's calling me? I see people in tawaf. Do you know people, unfortunately it's very common. People in tawaf, you know, they're speaking on the telephone. But I don't know what they're doing.
When Tarawih is like going now,
they're following the mushaf on the phone. And they are praying with the mushaf. So the level of interaction between human and machine is increasing, but it's going to fundamentally change work, teaching and learning, medicine, security. For example, the exoskeleton, this has been manufactured as an intelligent exoskeleton, artificially intelligent, which is helping quadriplegic people to walk, aided by an exoskeleton. I know of a young man in Durban who had an accident in the city who now has an exoskeleton. He is crippled from the neck down, and he now is able to move a little bit with the exoskeleton, right? So these are the experiments from being completely quadriplegic to the exoskeleton intelligently supporting the movement of the limbs. It sends an impulse and then it tries to move the muscle. It sends an impulse which you cannot do voluntarily because you have been quadriplegic through accident or whatever, damage to the brain, and it's beginning to stimulate the muscle. Computational power. Massive increases in census processing power. Remember I mentioned this to you earlier on. The fastest computer in 75 was equivalent to an iPhone. So the amount of computational power that can make the whole world... Let me give you an example from United States elections. Hudhaifa, you have to close your ears for this one, but... Donald Trump, Uncle Sam also has to close his ear. During the Trump campaign in 2016, he had the technology executives from Google, Twitter, Snapchat, Facebook at a nerve center in one state in the US, and they were looking at how people donated to the Donald Trump campaign online in real time. And Donald Trump needed, besides his own money, a lot of money for his campaign. So on one particular day, listen carefully, on one particular day, the digital experts in his nerve center, they did 30,000 iterations of the landing page of the Donate to the Donald Trump campaign website. How many iterations? 30,000 in one day, based on real data and big data feedback. So they said, okay, so people come to our website, say donate now to Donald Trump, for example, and people take the cursor, they go around the donate button for 5 seconds and they move off the page. So one iteration is move the button to another part of the page. Then people came, and when the button was green, more people donated than when it was red. Okay, so keep it green. When you increase the button size or decrease the button size, it affects people's behavior on the website. So in live chat time, they did 30,000 iterations per day on the Donald Trump campaign to donate to his campaign for the political. Iteration, you heard the term earlier on. We have in our business university here, students who log onto our page, regent.ac.za, our website, and we have a little app called Live Chat. The moment Hudhaifa comes onto our website, within a millisecond, our recruitment consultant will say, "Dear Mr. Hudhaifa, I see you visiting our program on Master of Business Administration. Can I call you now?" But you just visited the website, and your phone rings. So through live, we use it here every day. So through live chat, I can engage with you rather than you sending me an email, I pass it on to a consultant, then they get back to you 2 days later.
If I visit a website, the guy who's on the website, he knows that I'm in the website?
Yeah, absolutely. I can track you geographically. I say Dr. Muhammad from Jeddah is currently on our website. So I've got now 10 people from outside of South Africa on my website. It's simple, cheap technology. I can't tell you how cheap it is.
Banks do this.
Huh.
I got phone calls
Yeah.
from my bank
Yeah.
to tell me like, we know you are visiting our website and you want this person to be under your, one of your...
هذا دليل.
And then they simply, within a second,
Yeah.
as soon as I press write the name,
Huh.
and I want him to be one of those who I can transfer to, then they call me to make sure,
Khalas.
and I have to press 1 or 2 if
Yeah.
I agree that this person would be under my bank account.
So it's common, you see, we track, it's called tagging, and digital marketers use it to remarket. I like classic cars, so I visit classic car websites. So every time I surf the net, I have an advert of a classic car coming up. Yeah. How do they know? Ahmed Shaikh likes classic cars. Because all of this big data that they collect, every time you touch your phone, you're sending an information to Google or to your mobile provider, and they collect all these billions and billions bits of data, and they profile humanity.
It's quite evasive.
It is very, and the whole issue of Facebook is an example. But what we're saying here is that technology companies are modeling societies at extreme scales. There's an experiment. You can take an online test for 60 seconds. They'll tell you your nationality without asking you the question. They'll tell you your religion. They'll tell you if you're a believer or non-believer, what you like, what you dislike, what places you buy from. In 45 to 60 seconds, they will profile you, because all of us leave behind what? A digital footprint. Digital footprint. Every time you use technology, you send information to the companies. And they use your footprint to profile humanity.
What company?
All the technology companies. Facebook or Google, if I regularly visit a certain type of site, then my IP address and my likes on what I search for is regarded as big data. I say, okay, this guy in South Africa, he's of this Indian extract, and he regularly visited websites on classic cars, for example. And then I use my mobile phone, because I got mobile internet, I'm also visiting classic car sites. And then my WhatsApp voices, my voice notes, etc. All of this is available for manipulation.
I think the last thing I saw in the video, sorry to interrupt, they inject a certain SIM card in your body.
Now,
If you heard that.
yes,
So
it's a chip.
it's a chip.
Yeah, that collects data.
It collects data.
The number one asset in the 21st century is data. Money doesn't matter. In fact, money has become virtual. Who needs fulus if you have access to technology, right? The number one asset in the world by far over any other resource is information. And we don't respect information. It is quite interesting that the very first revelation to the Prophet ﷺ was what? Iqra. It's amazing. Of all of the 6,000, in excess of 6,000 verses of the Quran, Allah chose to use the very first word to the final messenger ﷺ to read, to proclaim, to think, to reflect, to ponder. It's very interesting. As an ummah, we're a people that should have been at the forefront of the fourth industrial revolution, of the information age. But no, for us it's la iqra. So this is what is going on. The internet, by the way, let me share with you stuff you already know. The internet will become very less text-based and a lot more visual, because they understand that human beings, we are all lazy by nature. Kaslan, huh? We don't want to read. It's easy to see a picture or a visual or a video, isn't it? If you have the option to read a 2-page document and watch a 2-minute YouTube video, what would you choose? YouTube. So they're looking at how instinctively people interact with information, so the media is going to become a lot more visual. And this will influence culture. People won't know the difference between reality and what is fake. There's a whole lot of organizations that are using technologies. For the doctor in the room, there are many open source healthcare research sites. Open source healthcare research sites. You know, if any of you know academia, then research, in academia, people protect research. It's my intellectual property. I spent years getting a PhD. This is my information. You can't just have it. But open source research for healthcare, with people using technology, mobile internet, Patients Like Me, for example, is a website where you can get online with millions of people and you share information on your disease. And doctors join in on the site, patients are there, healthcare workers are there, and you find solutions in an open source way. You don't have to be paid to do any of the research. So it's research at a massive scale in an open source way that the fourth industrial revolution has made available. Patients Like Me is making funding and treatment widely available. I'll give you a practical example. After a bit of research, there's a Christian group, an aid agency. Listen, Brother Hudayfa. There's an aid agency working in the refugee camps in Bangladesh for Rohingya Muslims. They go to the refugee camp and they use a simple tool to test eyesight. And based on your weak eyesight, they 3D print the glasses that you need in the refugee camp. So when they leave, you have a new pair of glasses, and for the first time you can see clearly. Where? In a refugee camp. with mobile technology using 3D printing. We go back to 3D printing, with 3D printing. Within a few minutes, you have a new pair of glasses.
So it's plastic glass.
Yeah, no, a lens, it's plastic, metal, could be whatever you want. It's exactly like yours, fully functional, done in under 10 minutes, run by a Christian aid agency. Right. So open source, you see, we as an ummah, now we're going to come towards the end because maybe you're tired of me giving you too many examples.
No,
as an ummah, the Quran is open source. شهر رمضان الذي أنزل فيه القرآن هدى للناس. It's open source for all of humanity. But we're keeping it to ourselves. We read it because we want the ajr, and we sing it, and we beautify it through recitation, and we make the taraweeh. But it's hudan linnas. We don't do this in our da'wah. We are not making it open source, but the technology allows us to make this Quran widely available so there can be hudan linnas. So we're not getting ahead of the fourth industrial revolution for the benefit of humanity. Not so. Patients like me, this is the website. You can visit it, Dr. Muhammad. You can visit it and others to understand how this particular lady is joining millions of other sufferers of what is called lupus. You know, it's an autoimmune disease. Lupus, SLE, systemic lupus erythematosus. So she is now finding out how she can feel better with this disease without visiting a professional healthcare worker, because she's able to interact in an open source website on other people who suffer from lupus. Those of you in education will know about MOOCs. You know MOOCs, massive open online courses. These are free online courses. There are tons of them available. You don't have to go to university. You can do a MOOCs course. MOOCs course, right? So this is disruptive technology about how people will learn. See, free online courses available at your convenience. MOOCs. There is a lecturer of a British university who said that all universities should be bulldozed. You know what bulldozed means? Destroyed. Yeah, knocked down completely. And this lecturer was being cheeky. He said, what's the need for a university? There's MOOCs. People can study at their leisure. There's a company called Udacity. Udacity. They have a boot camp for 4 weeks. And they say that the 4-week boot camp is better than a 4-year Stanford degree. How many week boot camp? 4 weeks. Is better than a 4-year Stanford degree. They guarantee you a job within 60 days in a large company like Google or at Silicon Valley. 4-week boot camp. So what is happening with teaching and learning? Udacity, with the letter U. Udacity. Udacity. It's just one example. Dr. Shoaib, we're going to finish now. No, we're going to finish now. Udacity. Everybody okay? Right, but you're going to get this presentation, and it is open source. You can use it majanan. Right, we go on. Globally connected world, increasing connectivity. You don't realize it, but you're very connected as a person, isn't it? You can be in touch with anybody, anywhere, any time of the day or night. And it's very adaptable.
When you vote, do you ever wonder whether your ballot is actually counted? If you meet someone online, how do you know they're who they say they are? When you buy coffee that's labeled fair trade, what makes you so certain of its origin? To be sure, really sure, about any of those questions, you need a system where records could be stored, facts could be verified by anyone, and